Halloween, for so many, is a time to honor the dead, dress up, have fun, and fill your bags with candy. This celebration, though, as fun as it may be, often invites people's darkest sides. Number 1. When I was younger, we frequently visited my grandparents around the holidays, even though we didn't live in the same town. My aunt lived around 2 houses away from my grandparents, and the lady in between their house was creepy. She was a large woman, over 6 foot tall. She'd usually wear logging chains around her neck, a long dress, and work boots. The only time I remember seeing her outside was either when she was in her garden or when she was around the back, washing the outside of her house. She did this often, and during these times, she would yell at us children and would call us all kinds of things. She would tell us that the devil would be coming for us. The adults told us to leave her alone and to avoid her. One of the cousins dared us to trick or treat at her house. I remember how scared I was, but I didn't want to be a chicken. Plus, I was going in a group. One of us rang the doorbell, and there were a lot of loud banging noises, as well as doors slamming from the inside of the house. When she answered the door, she had a severed head in her hands, and we all ran away screaming. The adults told us it was just a Halloween prop, and knew that we shouldn't be bothering her, and that we deserved to be scared. About a month later, my parents got a phone call that the lady had tried to kill my aunt while she was bringing in her groceries and had my young cousin in her arms. The lady had a rope saw and had come up from behind my aunt with it. She put it over her head and around her neck and proceeded to saw. My aunt naturally flipped and started kicking the door. My uncle came and beat the lady down with a fire poker. The police investigation revealed that the woman had been digging tunnels underneath her home, and they were coming up underneath my aunts and grandparents as well as another neighbor's house. She had been bringing the dirt up and putting it in the raised beds of her gardens. She also had a shrine of sorts underground, which had a few real severed heads around it. My aunt survived, by the way, but has a long scar across her neck. Number 2. About 5 years ago on Halloween, a few friends and I decided to go to a church graveyard at midnight, just for shits and giggles. All of us are atheists and have no real belief in the paranormal. So we get there, and we all decide to wander around separately and randomly take photos. Naturally, all of them are just pictures of dark, unlit graveyard, with nothing of interest and no artistic merit. That is until the photo that you can see on screen now happened. At which point I went nope and ran back to the car. The others heard my girlish screams and decided to join me, and we made a swift departure. The thing that I have to be clear about is, it was a moonless night, and there was no mist or fog to be seen at all. Once we'd all gotten somewhere slightly less creepy, we attempted to reproduce the effect using breath, vapor, cigarette smoke. None of these shots looked anything like what you can see here.
This happened on Halloween 4 years ago. I was sitting on the sofa in my apartment relaxing with my laptop, waiting for kids to come knock on my door as I usually did. Being too old to trick-or-treat, but not a fan of parties. However, this year, I had just moved to a new apartment, which was farther away from the larger homes I lived near before, and fewer kids seemed to be in the area. One of the reasons was that it was an apartment complex for single guys, and was far enough from my college that people who lived here had to drive to school. Still, I had a small bucket of candy prepared, as usual, which I had been snacking from. The apartments on both sides of me are usually quiet. Nobody lives in the apartment above mine. So far, the evening was just hours of silence and occasional music from my laptop. It was 7 o'clock and still not a single person had stopped by for candy. I suddenly realized that I might have left my outside light off. I wasn't used to my apartment yet, so I opened the door and looked outside to check. It was off. No wonder nobody had stopped by. I flipped the switch on and looked back outside to see if people were there. I couldn't see anyone walking around, but it was dark and the complex was large, so I didn't think much of it. I closed the door and started walking back towards the sofa. That was fast, I thought. I walked back to my sofa, stopped the music on my laptop, and picked up the bowl of candy. When I walked back to the open door, a young dark-skinned boy, probably about 10 years old at most, stood there by himself, with what looked like white flowers sprinkled all over the top of his head. He was wearing a SpongeBob shirt, and it didn't seem to be a costume, nor dressed unusually, except for the white flower that was on his short hair and forehead. He didn't say trick or treat, but he looked up at me and seemed irritated for some reason. "Can I use your bathroom?" His voice was monotone, almost like he was trying to fake a robot voice. I smiled, a bit shocked that my first visitor was this kid, and he didn't even want any candy. "Sure, but be quick." He ran inside past me and closed the bathroom door, locking it behind him. I decided to keep the front door open and stand next to it while I waited for him to finish, holding the bowl of candy while looking to see if anyone else was coming toward my apartment. 10 minutes later and nobody came by, and the boy was still in my bathroom. "Are you okay?" There wasn't an answer, but I could hear him walking around behind the door. The water faucet turned on a tiny bit. It was just streaming softly. I waited by the door. 2 minutes later, and the water was still running. My front door was open, and it was dark outside, except for the glow from my porch light. Can you come out for a second?" I started to worry if the boy was alright, or if he was playing some kind of prank. After all, it was Halloween. "I'm opening the door." I knew it was locked, but I tried wiggling the handle to see if it would budge. The water was running, but I couldn't hear anything else from behind the door. "Can you open the door? I need to use the bathroom," I said, using that as an excuse. I was starting to panic a little inside. Maybe he was hurt. There was still no answer. Now I was really starting to get worried. I ran my shoulder into the door once, wondering if what I see people do in crime dramas really works or not. It really hurt. I tried it again, and again. Then I tried kicking the door. At this point, I'm starting to freak out. The bathroom doesn't have a key, so there was no way to open it. "I'm calling the police." Actually, I was worried if the police would even show up in a reasonable amount of time on Halloween. I called them anyway, and they said they were in the neighborhood and could be right over. While I drove over, I explained on the phone what was going on. When they arrived, I ran outside and unlocked the complex gate, then followed them back to my apartment. The 2 officers arrived. They heard the water running, and then started kicking at the door. One of them had a crowbar but didn't need to use it. My cheap wooden bathroom door was open in a few solid kicks. It shot open, spraying paint dust and wood chips everywhere. Then I saw both of the officers pull out their radios at the same time and enter the bathroom. I ran up behind them to see what happened, but the officers' figures were blocking the view. "Oh boy," I heard one of them say. Now I was freaking out, and I couldn't talk. I was already uncomfortable in my new apartment. I didn't want to have a memory of finding a dead boy in my bathroom. Both officers were shuffling around in the bathroom. Then they stepped out and put their radios away. They looked at me sternly, and then one of them sighed. "I'm not sure what to say. I'm going to let you off with a warning because it's Halloween." My mind was filled with nothing but confusion and fear. I couldn't even look back at the officers after seeing their expressions. "I'll have one of our guys give you a call tomorrow to discuss this. For now, don't call us up anymore tonight." And then they walked out of the front door. One of them turned back to look at me, and then left the door open. In my panic, I ran into the bathroom. The floor was covered with tiny white wood chips from the door. The faucet was off. I didn't even realize the officers had turned it off. Nothing was there. Nothing else was touched. The next morning, I got a call from a woman. I was certain when I answered the phone that I was going to be in trouble, but what followed shocked me. "I was going to call you in regards to a prank phone call this morning, but after reading the report the police gave me, I'm not too surprised this happened in the first place," was what I heard. "This is the apartment manager, by the way. We had the same call from someone in that apartment 5 years ago for a similar thing. Maybe you can ask the police for more details, but simply put, when we used to be family housing, a boy died in that bathroom 7 years ago. They say he drowned in a bathtub." I couldn't say anything. "Happened 7 years ago, and after they left, the next residents called the police a couple of years later, saying that they heard a boy locked in their bathroom and wanted us to come help. When we got there, it was empty." "So it was a ghost?" was all I could ask. "I'm not saying anything. I don't know about all that. I'm just saying that this is not the first time. But the whole bathroom has been remodeled since then. It was a long time ago." The call continued, and we talked about some other things, mostly unrelated to the event of the previous night. I hung up the phone and was feeling a bit shaken. Nothing else happened that day. I decided I'd better call someone to fix the door. The apartment manager told me that she would pay for it, then jokingly told me not to let any kids use it. I tried as hard as I could to smile over the phone. The next day, the repair company came by. They called me on my cell phone, and I jogged outside to let them in. Right then, it felt like my insides were hit with a rock. I suddenly remembered that my apartment complex has a gate. Nobody without a key could enter. It's no wonder that there were no people trick-or-treating at my apartment complex. It was a singles apartment. No kids lived there, and no kids could have entered.
Happy Halloween, guys, and thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed these stories, why not leave a like and hit that subscribe button